What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. Today's topic I think is a timely one because Japan has finally opened up its borders to new visa holders, meaning students and workers are entering Japan once again from foreign countries. And I thought I would talk about culture shock today. I think this is a good topic. If you're a new resident in Japan, you can maybe learn a few important things. If you're a long-term resident here, you can probably relate to a lot of these things and maybe add your own observations in the comments below. And if you're just thinking of being a tourist and coming to Japan for a short time, this video will lift the veil a little bit on a part of Japan that you probably won't experience as a visitor. Now, just to be sure we're on the same page, I'm going to define culture shock. Basically, if you're not familiar with the term, it's when things happen or instances occur in a foreign culture or foreign country that knocks you off your equilibrium. The culture is different somehow to the one you were born in or to where you had your formative years. So something happens to make you depressed, sad, anxious, maybe even angry, resentful, and frustrated. That's what I mean by culture shock. And I'm going to focus on things that are specific to Japan or instances that could happen to you here. Because of course culture shock could happen anywhere you move in the world. But this video is about Japan. So with that explanation out of the way, roll intro. Okay, here are some of the things that might cause culture shock for someone who is a new resident of Japan, and maybe even a resident who's been here a while. The first one is spending money you are not expecting to spend. This can happen right away when you're looking for an apartment and you first arrive. If you're not being helped with your housing through your company or your school, then you might have to find your own place, in which case you might find yourself faced with the dreaded key money. Key money is basically a holdover from the post-World War II era when there really wasn't enough shelter for the populace because everything had been bombed and burned. So what people started to do was to give basically like gift money or present money to potential landlords so that they could stay in their place. That is key money. And what that is essentially is you're giving 1, 2, maybe even 3 months of rent just as a present to your landlord, which in the modern context seems really stupid. It's like, why am I giving you so much money just so I can now pay you rent month after month? But it's a holdover. Places are moving away from it. It's often a selling point now that there is no key money, but the place where you want to live may still have that and you might have to pay it. Now you've been living in Japan for a little bit, you have Japanese coworkers, and you decide to do some traveling. As a foreigner, you're probably going to do more traveling around Japan than your Japanese colleagues, just because, you want to see the country while you're here. So if that's the case, traveling means omiyage, or souvenirs. In Japan, it's customary to get souvenirs or omiyage for coworkers, not just your family and close friends. So when you come back to the office, it's kind of like saying, sorry I was away and enjoying myself. You might have been in the office working on something I should have been helping with, etc., etc. Here, live vicariously through me and have this treat or this sweet or whatever that you bought from your travels. Usually omiyage is a box of food or like small edible items that you give to your coworkers. Just leave it on their desk or hand it to them directly. And it's something you have to budget into your travel plans. So just get used to having to buy several boxes of food to take back with you. And at first you might feel resentful of this, especially if you are traveling much more often than your Japanese coworkers, because, well, that means you're spending all that money and you seem to not be getting anything in return. But remember, that's not actually the case. You're the one that actually got to go traveling. You're the one that got to enjoy the place you went to. And you're just giving a small token to the people who were left behind. I like omiyage culture. I certainly have nothing against it. And I think that anyone who lives in Japan should just get used to it and get used to budgeting for it. Other social things that you might encounter, probably will if you're of a certain age, is weddings. And in weddings, it's not a gift registry like in the States or other places. You give money in an envelope. And the money, if you're a student, maybe you can get away with 10,000 yen or about $100, which is still a lot of money if you're a student. But the typical amount, if you're going to a co-worker's wedding, which can happen in Japan, I went to several co-workers' weddings over my time here. The accustomed amount, or customary amount rather, is 30,000 yen, or about $300. So yeah, you better have some cash lying around. Well, not actually lying around. It needs to be crisp new bills from the bank. But you need to have that kind of money around so that if you are invited to these special occasions, you're able to, put $300 down. And while there are other examples of things you might end up paying that you never really intended, the last one I'll mention is the dreaded teisuryō. Teisuryō is like a transaction fee or servicing fee. I think I'll cut through here. And it can pop up when you buy things online. It can pop up when you order something, or even when you pay your taxes. This is one that upset me a few years ago. When I went to pay my car tax, they had the option to pay by credit card. I thought, oh, that's cool. I will do that. And then after filling out all the forms and going through the process, there's a 800 yen or $8 teisuryō or processing fee on the taxes I'm paying. Really? You're charging me a fee to pay you taxes? Yeah, that was not fun. One other I should mention is duties on packages from home. I've gotten several packages full of items that I wouldn't have expected to pay a duty on, but the mailman sat there and said, you owe 4,000 yen on this, please pay up. So gotta have cash in your house on hand for when that happens. If you are expecting any packages, yeah, you might have to pay duties that you weren't expecting. The next potential culture shock that you might encounter in Japan, again, it's something that could happen almost anywhere in the world, so I will focus on specifically Japanese instances, which is you're unable to function in society as you would like to. Sometimes you just feel like a child, like you can't do anything, you can't accomplish anything. You have a bad day where everything goes wrong because you just didn't know what to do, or you didn't know how to do something. And when you don't feel like you're a functioning member of society, that can go a long way to make you feel rather depressed. I think one of the most classic examples of this is the whole garbage sorting. Garbage sorting rules in Japan are so tough to follow, and they change from municipality to municipality. They're not always the same where you might live. I lived in a place for a while where you had to separate plastics, like plastic that had a label and plastic that didn't have a label had to be separated and put into different bins. That stuff can get frustrating. And if you do it wrong, this has happened to me and other people I know, sometimes your neighbors are too shy to confront the foreigner and let you know that you're sorting your garbage incorrectly. And so they contact your employer or your school and say, hey, the foreigner you put in this apartment is not sorting his garbage correctly. And I don't know about you, but getting the employer involved in that seems like a bit of overkill, but it has happened to me and others that I know. And speaking of rules, you might run into random rules that you can't believe exist or don't really understand why they exist. For example, you might go to a park and you'll see a family throwing frisbees around, and you see some friends with badminton rackets playing badminton, and you and your friends pull out a football to throw around, and a little old man comes running across the lawn. It's like, no balls, no balls, no ball to play, no balls. Another thing that happened. Yeah, no balls, right? Can't play football, frisbee, badminton, okay. No football. One more word on apartments. Of course, walls are pretty thin in Japan, so get used to, listening to loud movies with headphones or with the volume way down. Certainly no loud music. And again, your neighbors might contact your employer rather than, confront you directly. So those are obviously things that could make you feel down or blue or like Japan is a really tough place to live and you're having trouble fitting in. And Japan is pretty well known for having a remarkable amount of rules and regulations and proper ways to do things that might be hard to get used to and might cause culture shock as you go through society and living here. The final one I'm going to talk about that is Japan specific, and I don't want to make this video too long, is the default answer is going to be no for so many things you might ask permission to do or ask how to do something. And I'll tell you why that happens and why no is the default answer. It's actually the reason why a lot of long-term foreigners hear no, the rule or the adage that it's better to do and then apologize later than to ask if it can be done, only to be told no. And I'll give you a classic example from when I first arrived in Japan. I wanted to go to Tokyo, to Machida specifically, which is a city in Tokyo. And I wanted to go there because there was a martial arts dojo that was connected to a martial arts dojo where I had been training in my hometown in the States. I wanted to go to the parent dojo. And I'm living out in Yamanashi, in the countryside, and this is the age before smartphones, and there wasn't a whole lot of information in English on the internet about how to get around at that time. So I asked my school. I said, hey, I want to go to Machida, Tokyo on Sunday. How can I get there? And after a lot of teeth sucking and heads tilted to the side, they just told me that I couldn't go. Like, no, you shouldn't go. It's too difficult. Now, of course, I'm thinking, I'm an adult. I can decide if I want to go to Tokyo or not. So I just figured it out on my own, and I made it there and back without much incident. But I later learned why this sort of thing happens, why it's the case that no can be the default answer. The first one, and probably the most important reason, is because when you ask someone for help, when you ask someone to give you advice on how to do something, you are actually throwing responsibility in their lap. You're actually giving them responsibility for you. So if something goes wrong, you get lost, you make a mistake, that falls on their doorstep as well. And so it's more like they take that responsibility question that you've given them and they're like, huh, no, I don't want it. So no as an answer for default can come from not wanting to take responsibility if something goes wrong. The other reason is, well, quite simply, meiwaku, or it's a pain in the butt. Like, we got to figure out how to do this for this foreigner, or this foreigner might not understand how to do this and will muck it up. So it's better to just be like, nope, you shouldn't do that. And it's, less work for them. And they might be also thinking that it's saving you, the foreigner, from trouble down the line when something goes wrong. So yeah, meiwaku, it's just a pain. So yeah, basically those are the three things I wanted to outline for this video. The first is the possibility you're going to be spending money that you didn't intend, and anytime you spend money you weren't expecting you would need to shell out, that can make you a little bit depressed or frustrated or angry about that. The second one is not being able to function in society well through language barriers or through other things that happen where you just don't feel like you're a functioning member of society. And then the final one is encountering no and people being kind of unhelpful for you as a resident when all you want to do is to go to Tokyo or something like that. So I guess latch onto that adage I mentioned earlier, which was do first and apologize later rather than ask for permission. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's useful. Please comment below if you have other things you wanted to mention or experiences you have had. And again, thank you for watching this particular video. Look for my other content. Every single Friday I drop a video about Japan, society, life, and culture. I've been here for over 18 years, so I have a few perspectives. At any rate, thanks for watching this particular video, and I will catch you next week. Peace.